Hello, welcome to Somerset News Network. I'm Ian Summerall. Now, lots of commentators on all sides are all talking about the freedom of expression. Nobody talks about freedom of speech. I think this is deliberate. I think even the people that campaign for free speech are deliberately missing the point that we have the right of free speech under the law. The law is an act of Parliament. It's still in force. And I think a lot of the people that are being arrested for Facebook posts and videos because someone was offended need to know the basics of our rights and liberties. This is as I understand it. Even when you talk to lawyers, they don't even understand it, which I find odd. I used to work in the civil service, and I used to work with, I'm going to say, an old civil servant. Yeah, I think he'd been in the civil service for almost 50 years, and he was a lawyer, and he gave me 2 books written by the same guy. One is a doctor of law and one is a professor of law. As a doctor of law, he explained about our Constitution and our Bill of Rights, going through the Magna Carta to the Bill of Rights and all of it, and that to settlement. Then, in the early 70s, he wrote a book, and it said we didn't have a Constitution, and we don't have a Bill of Rights. How can he have it on one hand and not on the other? And that was just before Ted Heath took us into the European Union. They wrote it out of history. Now, if lawyers are not being taught the basic law and Constitution at university, what hope have we got? Now, where does it all start? I'm going to get on to the right of freedom of speech in a minute. All starts with the original Magna Carta, which is 1215. The barons met King John at Runnymede, and he signed the Magna Carta, rights and liberties. One clause in there that we're interested in was reaffirmed, and there was an act, and it reaffirmed the Magna Carta in 1225, 10 years later. And it says, "To no one will we sell, to no one deny or delay justice or right." It's the basics of our Constitution, of our civil rights. That is still an Act of Parliament. 1225 is still an Act of Parliament. Then in 1354, under Edward III, and as you can see, it says 28 Edward III, 1354. What that means, it's the 28th Charter of Edward III in 1354. And the important bit is the bit down the bottom. By due process of law. You can read the whole, you can put a stop on this and read the whole lot if you want. But that's where the phrase due process of law comes from. And that started our legal profession off. That's where the lawyers started. Then we move on. Our liberties were explained in 1405. That's the year that the English and the Welsh joined. And it was England and Wales. Now the bit in there here, I won't read it all out. It talks about the Great Charter, which is the Magna Carta, so it reaffirms the liberties, charters and statutes confirmed. It's what it says on the top. But the important bit, the important phrase, 1405, and that good justice and even right be done to every person. Even means equal, equal right. Now we've got a two-tier system at the moment of justice. Our Constitution does not allow this. Starmer must know this, but it's not in his interest to tell you because he wants to use two-tier law enforcement and justice. We have to tell everybody that this is our basic rights and freedoms. It's not rocket science. You don't need to be a lawyer to understand it. Now you have our basic rights and liberties. Then under James II, in 1688, the elites, the barons, Parliament, invited Mary, who was James II's daughter, with her husband, the William of Orange, to come over and have the crown. Went into Brixham and marched what is now the A303 and marched to London. By the time they got to London, James II had disappeared. That gave us the Declaration of Rights. Then that became the Bill of Rights. It cannot be changed, cannot be edited, cannot be repealed. In the Bill of Rights, it says it's for all time to come. It also says that no foreign power, princedom, kingdom should rule over us. So technically, the European Court of Human Rights has no jurisdiction over this country if we're going to be sovereign. I would argue that the government at the time that signed the agreement with the European Court of Human Rights had no right to do that under the Bill of Rights, under our Constitution. Now the bit that's important, the bit that we want to get to, is freedom of speech under the law. We have the right of free speech and debate under the law. Bill of Rights, 1689, Article 9, that the freedom of speech and debates or proceedings in Parliament are not to be impeached or questioned in any court or place outside of Parliament. And that would have been the Law Lords sitting in the House of Lords. But that's been moved. It's now become the High Courts. Now, they say, oh, that's the first thing I get from people is, oh, that's only for MPs. You know, proceedings in Parliament, that's only for MPs. Look at it again. My expertise is the Firearms Act and the Wildlife and Countryside Act. And if you have a little word, like an or in it, or an and joins the two parts together. The or splits the two parts up. So freedom of speech and debates or proceedings in Parliament. That or is so important. It's only two little letters, but it splits it up, which gives us all the right of free speech. And this is what the commentators are not saying. Even the advocates of free speech are not saying this. I don't understand why. It's in black and white, it's the law, it's basic. They keep going on like, oh, freedom of expression. Now, when John Locke talked about freedom of expression, it was the freedom of religious expression, wasn't the free speech. John Locke might have had a hand in writing this. So we've all got the right of free speech. Now they say, oh, we got the right of free speech in Hyde Park Corner. Yes, you have. But that was because there was riots and pamphlets being issued against the government. And the government wanted to move the discontent out of London. So they put it in Hyde Park. And they used to hang people in Hyde Park Corner. And they were allowed to have their last words. So they had freedom of speech. And that's where it comes from. But Hyde Park Corner, although it allows free speech there, is a restriction of free speech. Because it stopped free speech in London. So we have free speech, 1689, and it's still on the statute book. Anybody that's arrested for a YouTube video, social media, saying something on WhatsApp, first thing is you could say, freedom of debate under the Bill of Rights, freedom of speech under the Bill of Rights, Article 9. And I think they got a good defence. Because it's the law. What I want to know is why the advocates of free speech aren't telling you this. I've been on about it for years. And I've already done one video on this. I'm having to do another one. I'm just hoping that somebody who understands what I'm saying takes this on and lets everybody know. And the best thing you can do is like the video and share it far and wide. On social media, copy it anywhere you like. Let's get the message out that we have the right of free speech under the law. And there was a copper on Talk TV. He said, John Peel said, the constable should know the law well. So when they come and arrest you for a Facebook post, say you know the law well, Bill of Rights, Article 9, freedom of speech and debate. That's your defence. It's got to work because it's our constitution. And they should know it. Anyway, Ian, Somerset Newswork Network, sign off. Bye-bye, and get the message out.